Hello everybody and welcome to the 4th episode of our Venture Talks. This is Martin and Stefan again. We are from Chemstars and we are here today with 2 fantastic guests who are sharing their unique experience with science-based entrepreneurship to help you guys also make the best out of your research and try to help you to create impact from your own research. So Martin and I, we are Chemstars. We are initiated by the chemical industry and we are supported by the Ministry of Economic Innovation, Digitalization and Energy of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. And our goal really is to help startups with touch points to the chemical industry to be more successful. Before we start today, we'd like to thank, of course, our fantastic guests, Beate and Georg, for taking the time and sharing your experience with us and our audience today. And we also like to thank our friends from Guide, who invited us to come here today, with whom this event would not be possible. If you don't know Guide yet, Guide is the Zentrum for Entrepreneurship here at the University of Duisburg-Essen, and that's a go-to place for everyone at University of Duisburg-Essen who's considering starting an own company. Make sure to stick around later, because in the end of our talk we will also see a short video of Guide, and this will explain to you what Guide actually does. This episode today is a hybrid episode. That means we have guests here in the room, but we also have guests online. So for everyone here in the room, we'll pass on a microphone later if you have questions for our guests as well, so you'll be able to ask them. And for everyone who's online, we also have an eye on the chat. You can write your questions in the chat section of the YouTube stream, and we will also forward your questions to our guests. And so I would say let's get started. In the next 50 minutes we will talk about a few things. So we will talk first of all about why it is super important for startups to actually talk to real customers. We will talk about what you should do when you find out you're maybe not on the super right track and you need to change or adjust your business a little bit. We will talk about how you can find out if your idea is worth pursuing. And last but not least, and this is very important, why the team is so important for a startup. This should be enough for an introduction from my side. I will now hand over to my colleague Martin. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation, and I hope you will enjoy this talk.
Thank you, Stefan. And also thank you to everyone in Duisburg-Essen and from Guide that we can be here today. Thanks to our fantastic guests. I'm really excited about today because we're going to talk about one of the most critical success factors when you start a company, which is interaction with customers. And every startup is really just a series of hypotheses that need to be true in order for your business model to work. So the only way to find out if this is the case is by speaking with potential clients. And this is one of the things you need to do if you want to start a company or if you have already started a company. Our first guest today is co-founder of ColFerroX, a startup which is developing a new technology that captures toxic pollutants from ground and wastewater. She's an absolute water science expert and what we like to call a University Duisburg-Essen local. So you've spent a lot of time in this facility here over the past years. We're very happy to have you, Beate Krok.
Thank you.
And our second guest is co-founder and CEO of SenseUp Biotechnology, a company that develops microbial production strains and processes for the food, feed, and pharmaceutical industries. He has co-authored numerous publications, he holds patents, he's a very thoughtful human being and speaker. And it's great to have you here with us today, Georg Schaumann. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to start by talking a little bit about a topic that may be new to a lot of people who are in chemistry. It's synthetic biology. And synthetic biology is said to be one of the most important and most disruptive technologies of this century. Maybe, Georg, can you explain to the chemists in the room and online what exactly synthetic biology is and why it's so important and why it has the potential to disrupt entire value chains?
Yeah, so synthetic biology, which by the way isn't synthetic at all in my opinion, is the approach to tailor biological systems for fulfilling a given task. For example, To produce a protein, you need for a new drug. To produce an organic acid, you need for biopolymers. To produce RNA for vaccines. Yeah? And you already see these applications span whole industries, yeah? From the chemical industries for biomaterials, pharma, food, feed, whatever. Yeah? And therefore, it has this huge impact. At least it's expected to have in the next decades, and we already see its huge impact now.
And with SenseUp, you're working on with such and on such technologies. Can you comment on what exactly you do as SenseUp? Like, what is your product, your service that you develop, that you sell?
Yeah, in one sentence, SenseUp develops biotechnological processes by natural evolution. So, one sentence, yeah, we can be more descriptive. Imagine a pharma company who developed a new drug, and this is based on a protein. By the way, the majority of new drugs are based on peptides or proteins. And the only way to produce such proteins is to use biological systems. So they need someone to develop this production process, and that's what we are doing. We are doing that for proteins, for peptides, for nucleic acids, and also for small molecules, so the whole spectrum. And now, of course, it is important how are we doing that. Yeah? There are many companies out there offering such services. And our USP is that we do it with natural evolution. You might see natural evolution as the opposite of design. Because design, of course, means you specifically think about how you want to tailor a given chemical reaction in a cell. On the opposite, evolution means you use the potential nature has to find elegant solutions itself. And we believe in nature's power. You see, we have living cells in the weirdest places on Earth. Yeah? Cells are capable to produce any molecule you are interested in. Yeah? So I think it is smart to use this power to find an elegant solution for your problem. And how are we doing this? We developed biosensors, which transform the productivity of each single cell in an optical signal. And this you can analyze in very, very high throughput, namely millions of cells in minutes. So with this, we can let nature do its job by finding elegant solutions, and we identify the one cell under millions of others which has the properties we need.
Yeah. So basically, you kind of get cells to do their evolutionary work, and you pick the winners that are doing exactly what you're looking for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, do you think that synthetic biology or biotechnology is kind of complementary to chemistry? Is one better than the other, maybe? Most chemists typically think about reactions from a chemical point of view, but I believe there's like huge complementary potential for these technologies to work alongside. What do you think?
Yeah, fully agree. So there is no one is better than the other. We need both, because the advantages are in fact complementary. For example, with biological systems, you can perform highly complex reactions you couldn't even think doing by chemistry. However, the yield is low. Let's say you put in 100 grams of glucose and you get out 0.5 grams of protein. If you make a complex drug, this is fine. But if you have a chemical process transforming 100% of your substrate in the product, of course, you should use this one. Of course, we also have the question about the substrate. We don't want to use oil for everything, so we have an alternative with the biological systems, but again, you need both.
Yeah. And you started SenseUp from your research, or based on your research. One of the very first steps was applying for public funding. So you first applied for Helmholtz Enterprise, which is a program that helps you get your research out of the lab, and then for Go Bio. Can you maybe comment on the importance of these programs for your transition from researcher at university or at a research institute to being a CEO of a company?
I'm very clear about that. Without these programs, SenseUp wouldn't exist. It's that easy. Yeah. What's the reason? If you invented something new as a researcher, and you want to turn that into a product or a technology you can offer on the market, you need to add huge effort to get there. You will need 1 year, 2, 3 years to do all of that, and this costs money. But obviously, the risk for failure is very, very high in the beginning. So it will be hard for you to find investors, private equity for that. So, and I think that's same situation all over the world. You need this governmental support to bridge this gap between the scientific idea and result and a first idea for a product on the market.
Okay, so Beate, let's maybe talk a little bit about ColFerroX. So you're active in site remediation and wastewater treatment. Can you tell us and the audience a little bit, what is your customer expecting, or what are they trying to achieve when they're approaching you, and if they want to buy your product or service?
Yeah, usually someone has a problem with water. The water is contaminated, and the water needs to be cleaned then again. So then they come to us, and yeah, what we offer is our iron oxide that can absorb different contaminations like heavy metals, or fluoride or cyanides, then get absorbed to the compound and can be then separated from the water. So we can tackle, as you said, groundwater, but also wastewater, process water.
Mm-hmm. And how are your clients solving this today, and what makes ColFerroX so special?
So yeah, looking at groundwater, there are technologies to clean groundwater. You have to pump it up, and you can clean it through conventional method, like through membranes or ion exchange, but you need to pump the water up. So you need to put energy, actually, to get it up, clean it, and then you pump it down again. So what we can do with our solution is we pump our particles directly into the groundwater aquifer. There they spread and they stay there, so we are kind of establishing a filter within the aquifer, and then the water that is flowing through the filter is cleaned from the contaminants. That's for the groundwater. For the wastewater, we kind of offer an alternative to flocculation. So there is already a method existing, which is flocculation, but with flocculation you need for different contaminants, different pH values, different vessels, and we can tackle a lot of different heavy metals and other compounds in one step. So that's our USP.
Yeah,
for
very
wastewater.
Cool. Georg just told us that without public funding tools or methods, SenseUp Biotechnology would not be here today. But you did not use tools like Exist or something like this. Can you tell us a little bit about your approach, how you did it, and why you think tools like Exist are important or maybe are not important? I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
I totally agree with him that it's really important, and if I could do it again, I would do it through that way. But also he said that the development of the product to a market-ready one is very difficult. But we had the luck that we already within the project developed something that was already market-ready. So we developed it in a lab, we checked its work, it is really working. Then we translated this lab product into an industrial product. So we also produced ourselves here at the university, actually, tons of that product. With industrial chemicals, which already was a big difference to the chemicals that we use in the lab. Then we also find a company that was doing that for us. So we already had someone, we had the recipe that was working, we had a company that was producing the product for us. So we had already that step done. So we thought, now we are really convinced that the product works, we can produce it, we can sell it, and with that we went on. So we got a little bit, I wouldn't say funding, but we got a little bit of money through an accelerator from the European Union. But most of the money came really privately from us because we have a GmbH. So yes. Yeah.
Can you maybe just one comment, because when we last spoke, I love these stories about the projects that you've already done. Can you maybe tell us about one or two projects that you did that you really loved?
Yeah, actually, yes, I'm a scientist, so I study here, I did my PhD, and then I really wanted to get out because I was really tired of just doing it in the lab. But we were already we were really able to go into the industry and see how the industry is doing it. So in big vessels, in tons of water that you have to treat, and we were able to go there and be in these facilities and just use the water to show that our technology is really working in real life environments. So it's not only in the lab environments, but really in field. So that we've been here. One of the biggest aluminium smelting facilities is actually based in Essen, and we were so lucky that we could treat their wastewater with our product, which actually really worked fine. That was that was really nice. I mean, for most of the people, it's not so interesting to stay in a big facility where you just see vessels, but actually seeing that your product is working for tons of water, that was a big moment for us.
Yeah, and was that the moment when you realized that what you did in the lab, that your research had a commercial value, or did this?
That was one of the later moments. The commercial value that we really saw was already before when we were doing groundwater remediation, because actually we did it in Spain and Portugal. So we've been there in the field and you didn't see anything because it was a brownfield basically. No. And then there was a car coming with tons of our product, and all the engineers were working together to get it into the aquifer, and then later on getting the data that really before this filter there was a lot of contamination in the water, but after the water went through the filter there was no contamination. That was a really lucky moment, and we thought, it's working. We showed it in the field, so we are here based in the Ruhr area. There are a lot of contamination based here, so there's a lot of work for us to do.
I mean, I guess it's also amazing to do the first tests in Spain and Portugal, even though you are here from the Ruhr area. What we also love to ask our guests is how did your friends and family react when you told them, hey, I founded just a German Limited and I'm entrepreneur, managing director now. How did they react? Because it's like not the usual way for a scientist to go. Yeah, actually, my family was quite surprised. I mean, I've been studying at the university for 5 years, bachelor and master. Then I did a PhD, and they were always like, when are you finishing the university stuff, right? So, and then I did my postdoc, and within the postdoc, we did the startup, and they were like, okay, now it's getting a little bit fast, so what does that mean, a startup? and also then they're getting a CEO and actually owning the company, and you decide where the company is going to. So they're like, oh yeah, that's fast, but good luck with that. They were quite surprised.
Yeah. Georg, what was it like for you?
It was not such a big surprise, but not because we would be a family of entrepreneurs. So actually, there is no entrepreneur in my whole larger family. But I think we are all used to do very different things. So in my family, there are musicians, teachers, medical doctors, engineers, physical therapists, and so on. So it's absolutely fine that I'm an entrepreneur then. So it wasn't so surprising. But of course, you also have to see the idea to found SenseUp was born maybe half a year after I started my PhD. So there was time to adapt.
And how did you find out that what you were researching in the lab actually had some sort of, or could have some potential commercial value?
I didn't find that. Somebody else found that. And think this company is even on the screen here.
Just above you.
Yeah, we made sure it was.
I don't
right
want to be
above you.
too specific, maybe. However, as a young PhD student, so just half a year or so after I started, we had a project meeting. It was a BMBF-funded project with a big industrial partner. And together with my co-founder Stefan, we decided here, let's see that during dinner we will sit next to the big boss. Yeah? Get to know him, say here, maybe in a few years we could work for you and so on. And after a minute or so, he noticed what our aim was. And he said to us, guys, see, I'm really excited about the technology you are developing there, but these are not the times big companies buy this in and engage you, yeah? But these are times of outsourcing. And if you would offer this on the market, we would be willing to pay much for that. So this was the second, in which this idea was born. And
I guess that would quite straightforward if a potential customer tells you,
Exactly,
I will buy it
yeah.
from you. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that sounds fantastic. But having that said, you already mentioned when we spoke last that this wasn't actually what you are doing now, right? So today you're doing something a little different. And over the course of the past years, you've kind of significantly changed your business model, your products and services. This is what in the startup world is typically called a pivot. And can you maybe comment on the specific learnings that you had and how you achieved them or how you got to them to make that decision to change course, to change direction?
I thought about this and came to the conclusion that I wouldn't call it a pivot in our case, but more a kind of stepwise improvement, or let's call it further development. Because the main message we received from our first customers was, we don't want to buy only the small part you offer us. We want to buy the bigger product. So, because this is now this would get very technical now. Let's take an example. Imagine there is a high demand for bicycles, and you invent an awesome new frame, which is better than everything on the market, and you go to your customers and say, look at this frame, and they say, really, yeah, great. Yeah, but to be honest, we also need brakes, we need tires, and so on. So it would be nicer to have all of this. And of course, you have to ask yourself, can I do all of that? Yeah? So when they continue and ask you, could you also deliver helmets? Maybe you should say, yeah, please, we can give you a bike, but not more, because you can't be awesome in everything. But this was the main aspect in our case, that we understood nobody wants to buy in just a screening tool, but a whole strain development. And this is what we offer today. We offer a complete solution to our customers. They just say, we are interested in producing this protein or this nucleic acid, and we give them the full solution.
So your, let's say, continuous improvement was based on the customer demand that you saw when you talked to your customer, and that's why you constantly developed your startup further and your solutions. Okay. And Beate, how was it with you? I mean, you started with groundwater treatment, and now you're doing wastewater treatment. What made you pivot or change your business model?
Yeah, basically time, because groundwater remediation is something that really takes time before a decision is taken, and there are a lot of decision makers involved. So you have basically the company that has a problem with groundwater, but usually the company was not really causing the problem because there was some other company before which caused the problem. Then there's the authority that also has to to say, yeah, okay, we can use this method. Then there, in the company itself, you have different kind of decision makers that have to look for how much does it cost, are we willing to pay that, or is there a cheaper one, or do we just control the water in another point again, or so it really can take up from 1 year to 10 years to take a decision. For a young startup, that's quite long. So we looked for other kind of waters that we actually can tackle. And we came up with wastewater, especially industrial wastewater, because we are here surrounded by industry, by heavy industry that have very contaminated wastewater, and they need to clean the water on daily basis, because if they do not, there are hard fines they have to pay. So we went there, and they were really open. They were like, yeah, sure, here's our wastewater, let's try it. So it took us like 3 to 4 years to actually got cases in groundwater, whereas in wastewater it took us half a year, and we already had 5 companies that were willing to test, like first in the lab, but also in their facilities itself. So the market was just faster.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, understanding that a product you're offering takes time to be sold is incredibly important, because when you start off, you're like, okay, I have this solution, I've developed something, and you believe it's going to be incredibly quick to sell it, but it typically takes a lot of time to actually get someone to buy something from you.
And this was something that I learned. It really needs time until you start with the early adopters, yeah? And then you can go with that cases and do marketing, and then more and more.
Yeah, and what would you say to the scientists in the room who are thinking about starting a company? What can they do to find their early adopters?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and it came to my mind that when you develop something and you think that it's really something that you want to go out into the market, you think that you're solving a problem. And that's the thing, the problem. You really need to define the problem, because sometimes you think that's a problem. You define this problem for yourself. But then when you start to talk with people give you another idea of what the problem really is and what is really important. Yeah. So, and that changed also for us a little bit, because we were thinking, yeah, the product is amazing, but they were like, yeah, okay, it's amazing, but I need really to tackle the trace metals or the threshold values. Mm-hmm. So, and one specific thing that we learned is what actually something that we can do better than other products is, in wastewater there are metals, but they are not only metals, there are metal complexes that other products cannot tackle, but our product can. That's something that we learned just by trial, because we tried the wastewater of the customers, and they saw, oh wow, now we're really below the threshold values, and that's something.
Yeah, and also maybe something that you wouldn't have found out by just sitting in your lab thinking about this, right? So by interacting with your clients, with your customers, they actually say, listen, metals are a problem, but these trace complex metals, they're incredibly important. Yeah,
and every conversation that you have with potential customers or other people gets you... Yeah, you can define the problem better, so you can sell actually your your product better to the market, because you know there is a need for it. So you really define the problem. Yeah, that's something I would say.
I mean, you're both in B2B, and talking to customers is super important, but in B2B is especially difficult. Do you have any advice how potential future founders can deal with it? So on the one hand, motivate themselves to go out the lab and actually talk to potential customers, and the other question is how to approach someone who's working for a Evonik or Covestro, and what's the best way to talk to them?
I think the biggest hurdle for most of us is just to reach out to people, because everybody is initially afraid, because he might not know everything about his own topic. He's afraid that he will be asked for things he can't deliver or so, but that's quite simple, right? So we just have to stop being afraid. Always think about what could be the worst case. So I think it's for 99.9% clear they will not physically attack you. They will not laugh about you. So why are we so afraid? I think it's normal, that it is a kind of a hurdle. But if you just talk to people and ask them, most of them will be glad to help you. So just do it. And how to get the contact, I think that's not so difficult. You have professors you could ask for contacts. You could just use LinkedIn and so on. So I think even today, this is not so difficult anymore.
And I mean, sometimes we hear the question, okay, if I talk to someone at Covestro, for example, and that's not the right person, I can never talk to Covestro again because they know that I've talked to them. So do you think that's the case, or just approach as many people as possible until you find the right person to talk to?
I would do that. And even if you talk to people and they see, okay, you are just starting, that's absolutely fine. So there was one experience I made very, very early. We just started, and we had a meeting with a big company. When I stepped in, I saw there were 25 to 30 people. I didn't expect that, and for us, only me. And I presented our product, our idea, and then they asked, how much does it cost? And it was really early. I didn't know, and they said, maybe, and just thought, whoa, okay, we need a lab, we need this, maybe 800,000 euro per year. And they smiled a bit and said, look, we are a big company, but even for us, 800,000 euros per year is quite a bit. And of course, that was, initially it felt a bit embarrassing, but in the end, they all together tried to help me. They said, here, look, it's great that you try it. Your idea is good, but look, we have this problem and this might not work. They really helped me. So I think this is not the baddest experience you can make.
Yeah. And you wouldn't say, maybe a question for both of you, you wouldn't say that scientists or entrepreneurs, founders need to be afraid that people will steal their idea? Because this is one of the concerns that we get quite frequently from people.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Most of the time there is IP you have, right? But you can also start talking about problems rather than solutions and get a feeling for how trustful that is. So sometimes when we, for example, share our solution with, our product with other companies, we have an NDA, so that's fine. So I think you shouldn't be afraid, especially not in the early phase. And the more you talk, the better it can get.
I completely agree. I think, of course, with customers, you usually have an NDA because they have also to tell you about their issues. But I think to be afraid that anybody is stealing your idea doesn't make too much sense, because I think the idea is not the point. To transfer the idea in a product, that's the very difficult point. There are many scientists around the world, and I think we could all assume every idea we had might already be thought by 100 other persons in the world. So the idea itself is not the main point. It is to get funding for that, to ask customers how to make a product out of that, and so on. And that anybody directly steals that is quite unlikely.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm wondering is, you were telling us that you kind of iterated with your products and business model, and you kind of changed it over the course of time. Now you have investors on board, venture capital investors. How do you communicate such changes to your investors? How do you get them to join you on your journey, and how do they react when you say, listen, I may have not been entirely right here, but now I know for sure, trust me, now I know.
So I think this is absolutely fine. Of course, it is your job to tell a compelling story. You have to explain it, and that even helps you to check your concept for weak points. So we are doing this right now again. Yeah? So we had the governmental support, we had our seed financing rounds, and now we are preparing the Series A financing round. And for that, we are just doing this, yeah, to tell our story internally again and again, and to see what could be asked, or where is a weak point. And it will definitely be the case. The first pitch we will have, there will be questions we can't answer, but this will help us to be even more convincing. So therefore, I think it's not a problem, it's kind of an advantage to do that.
Mm-hmm. So with investors, it's kind of similar like with customers. So you kind of start off, and then you learn, and you iterate, and you get better at what you do?
Essentially, yes. So of course, you should be, of course, careful. Maybe I would be a bit more strict with investors because, of course, there are many out there, but only a few might be the right one for you. So I don't want to burn them. With customers, sometimes that's a smaller problem, maybe. But anyway, all in all, I think you can compare that.
Yeah. And based on your experience, are there any things that either of you would have liked to have known earlier? I mean, you both have now been founders, or not just founders, but also in the management of your company for quite a while. What would you would have liked to know earlier?
That's a good question. I mean, lately we took a person on board that helped us a little bit with the economics, with paperwork and stuff like that. So I think that's a very good help, and I would like to have that a little bit more in advance. So there's a lot of work, that routine work that someone could take for you. That's something that I would advise everyone to do, especially someone that is really firm in numbers. Yeah, that's something that I would like to have more in advance. Yeah, and as I already mentioned, if I would do it again, I would go through an exist. Yeah, definitely.
I think two things coming up to my mind. One is being proactive is extremely important, as we just told several times, and you can't be that enough. So knowing that from the first days on is quite important. That's one thing. The other thing is there were times I was afraid about accounting, taxes, and so on, and you don't have to be afraid. Yeah? There are experts for that. You don't even have to employ them. Yeah? These can be external people. So you can and you should focus on further technology development, on telling your story, in asking customers what they think about it. This is your job. Of course, also to build up a good team. Yeah, these are the things. Don't be afraid about numbers, accounting, and so on.
Yeah.
Let's maybe talk a little bit about the team, because you mentioned it. So you don't need an accountant on your team and a controller, but what was your starting team, or what is your current team looking like?
We are mainly a team of scientists. And I think it tells you much that most of the team was recruited from the research institute I was working before. For me, that is a very important thing, because I only employed really hand-picked people I knew for quite a time. So I know their skills, their skills in biotech. I know them personally, so it was easy for me to see that they fit perfectly to our company and our team. I think it's way more difficult to get people from the outside. Of course, we also did that, and that also worked fine, but just I guess for many founders it is good advice to look around in their old team, or if there's anybody to join.
I mean, if you would ask Martin and myself, we always recommend to the team to have a diverse team, to maybe have also someone with a business background from the start on. But it also works if you don't have a business guy from the start.
Depends on the stage of your company. Yeah? So we started without business people. Don't know if it might have been better to have someone. Now we have someone for just 2 months, and it is great. It really helps a lot. So it's not the case that we didn't think about that earlier, of course. But you even have to find the right one. So I looked for a guy like Fabio for over a year, and I had chats with different people, and all the time I thought, oh, yeah, okay, they have competencies, they have skills, but there is not this fit you are looking for. And with him, it was there within 5 minutes. That's what you should be careful about, because once you have someone in your team, it's difficult to split ways again.
I actually disagree with you in that point. We are a team of 3 scientists, and we work really nicely together. We meet each other within a project, and we still work nicely together. But we would really need someone that is firm in business and communication and marketing. And yeah, we also have that little help that does accounting and taxes for us, which helped us already a lot. So if we would now find someone for all the business stuff, it would give us more freedom to get new solutions for problems, so more development within the company. So I would recommend to have a person like that as soon as it's possible on the team. But I also agree with you that you should really take your time to find a person that fits to your team, that also understands what you're doing and what you're going to sell. Because that's sometimes in science, it's different to find there someone that also understands what you exactly are doing.
So in addition to skill set, it sounds like it's important to have people that kind of have the same set of values and beliefs. Would you say this is what you were looking for when you looked through different people or looked at different people, and then Fabio came along?
Yeah, of course, you need both. Yeah, you need the personal fit and the skills. But at least for me, founding a startup and even now running a small company means you spend much time with your team. You really have to work closely together to find new solutions, to solve problems. So I couldn't do that with persons I personally don't like. You even need very much trust, of course.
Yeah. And you both have had changes in your team in the past. You already mentioned Stefan, who's now not working for the company anymore. Can you tell us how that came about and how you dealt with this process and why that happened?
Yeah, so of course this was personally challenging, because we both founded the company a few years ago. We spent 3 to 4 years, a bit like a married couple, to do all the work. But then our roles developed, and without aiming for this, the roles developed in a way that he asked me someday, Georg, to be honest, do we need me anymore? Yeah. And this was really honest, and it's really great that he has such a reflective view on his role. And we decided, no, to be honest, we don't need his role anymore. And it was not easy personally for us to accept that, but for the company it was the best we could do, because now we have Fabio in, who brings in exactly the know-how and the experience we need now. I think maybe we didn't even need this experience 3 years before or 2 years before, but now it's exactly what we need.
So the skill set you need in a startup kind of changes over time.
Yeah. And even if you start with 2 or 3 scientists as a founding team, maybe there is the possibility that in the end you will employ more scientists. They will do most of the science, and then you might ask yourself, okay, the other 3 guys were also scientists. It's quite unlikely that one of them turns out to be spontaneously a very good person in finance or so. Yeah? So then it is quite reasonable that you might need other persons.
Yeah. And what would you say to scientists who are about to start a company, who are maybe 2 or 3 people, and they're thinking about what the company could look like one day? Would you suggest they think about which way each person wants to develop to, like in the very early phases? Is this something where you would say maybe this develops or occurs naturally? Because at the end, not everybody can be the lab head, right? So you have different functions in your company or your organization. So when would you say is a good time to think about this?
So it will definitely develop naturally. So even if you make a plan before, you will not stick to it. And of course, you should ask yourself and the others if there is some complementarity between all of you. If there are 3 scientists saying, we just want to make our science, you don't have a founding team, right? So if you have 2 scientists and one of them says, here, look, I'm really the expert person. I want to do the science and nothing else. Maybe that is a very good person to be the CSO. Yeah? And if the other person says, okay, I also like the more general view on the things. I like to talk to customers and so on. Okay, great. That should work.
Yeah, actually, we are still the 3 of us, but the positions or the function that we have within a team developed, and it really came naturally, as you said, that we have Rainer, who's more the scientist, and he's still a scientist. We have Sajjad, which is doing the field work, so he's actually developing the solution for the field. I'm the CEO, but I'm also having contact with the clients, and I'm doing also the lab stuff. So I'm translating the problem, so that Sajjad has the data for the field, and then can go with the engineers. So yeah, the positions changed so really, and that came really naturally.
Cool. Maybe we take this point or take now the time to maybe look at you guys. Do you have any questions? We don't have questions in the chat yet, but maybe there are some questions in the room. So,
Holy
it's
smokes,
great.
There's 3 questions.
I did not expect this, to be honest, but okay, let's go for it. I don't know your name, but go. No, ask us your questions. We will repeat it for the audience.
I have a question to Beate. If I understood correctly, you're still doing your postdoc and simultaneously CEO of a company. How does that work? Does it work at all, or is it just super, I don't know,
We're just repeating it for the people online. So the question was, you're postdoc and CEO of a company. How the hell does that work?
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and it's only, it works because I have Sajjad that helps me a lot. Yeah, he's also a postdoc, and he's working the same load as I, and that's why I really would recommend everyone coming from the university and has a solution for a problem, go with some funding, some early funding, where within the funding you fund the company, and then you go to a further program, because then you have the freedom, you can work only for the company, so you don't have this. Yeah, in Germany we would say Doppelbelastung, and it is a lot of Doppelbelastung. But yeah, it comes because you believe and you really want that company to succeed, and that's where you get your power from to do that, actually.
And maybe one important message building onto that is, once you've founded a company, once you've gone to the notary and you've signed the papers, the paperwork, there is some public funding you can't apply for anymore. So it's really important to look into the public funding route before you start your company. All right. Question number 2.
I have a question to Georg, and on the question of the team building. You mentioned that you had a science company, your core team was scientists, and then you add some it mostly difficult to come up with the same understanding that people with business background have a good knowledge of what is the actual work is, and vice versa, the scientist. How do you could overcome this gap for yourself as a scientist and for the businessman?
To repeat it also, I guess the question was, how do you bring the different backgrounds from the scientists and the business people together if you bring the business people later on into the company?
So to understand the business people is not difficult for me anymore. Yeah? So as I just told you, we started without business people, so it was my part to do also this kind of work. So it's not new for me. Therefore, it's easy to understand them. The other way around, in fact, is difficult. And I think it's quite hard to find business people with enough understanding. Yeah? So in our case now, there was no pre-education in science. However, there is kind of natural understanding if we explain it in the right way. Yeah? But again, I think it's very difficult to find these people. Even people understanding that even if they don't understand each single reaction, yeah, they need to understand how things are going on. For example, that life sciences doesn't mean I have A, B, and C, plug this together and it works. No, it's not the case. Yeah? And so you need people open-minded enough, yeah, to understand this, and they are in fact hard to find.
I think it's somewhat funny, huh? If you look at digital startups, for example, they always struggle to find the tech guys. And now, let's say you are the tech guys and you struggle also to find the business guys. So yeah, that's funny, huh? Okay,
one more question.
Yeah, I want to, Georg, you mentioned that with the GoBio and the handholds funding, that makes SenseUp possible. So that's very good. But were there also sort of like lowlights when applying for these programs that you had to go through? Like if there were some, I don't know, if there are some improvements that could be made from your perspective, having gone through all of that?
Do you want to repeat?
You can if you like.
So I think the question is are there options to optimize these governmental funding programs? Huh? And to be honest, they are quite good. So I don't see many issues with that. I think it's a pity, maybe that's a bit too political statement, but however, it's a pity that some of these programs were stopped at a certain point and given to new people. Maybe these new people are also great, might be, but we experienced GoBio as an absolutely great program. It was made and monitored by people doing this for many years. They knew many investors, they knew customers, they knew which problems came up in many other cases. They even supported, for example, companies like Biotech in their first days. They also received GoBio. So you see how much experience these people have, and this helped us a lot. Yeah? And so I was quite surprised to hear, I think 1 year back, that they exchanged the team. So I would say don't do that, yeah, but that's the only point I want to make here. All the other aspects of these programs are really good.
And we just had a conversation today with some of our friends in Berlin who were mentioning that GoBio is great. Me also making a political statement, sorry. GoBio is great because it focuses on biotech, but there's also green chemistry. So it'd be good to have GoChem, like GoChemistry, for example. So have more of these programs that help get these incredible technologies out of the lab, out of academia, into the real world. So yeah, I fully agree. These programs are incredibly important. Unfortunately, it's also difficult to get in. So when it comes to GoBio or to Exist, it's not that everybody gets it. So this is unfortunate, but still, they're incredibly helpful in the very early phases.
And it is even good to have maybe GoBio, GoChem, or GoIT, because things you have to achieve, the problems you have are very different. Yeah? So it doesn't make so much sense to have one program for all.
Yeah,
I mean, that is what we also experience with our support program, that chemistry has very specific, industry-specific questions and topics that you cannot deal in a more general program that is open for everyone. Yeah. Cool. So we don't have any questions in the chat.
And I think we don't have too much time left either. Any more questions from the audience? Doesn't seem to be the case. Then,
so maybe last but not least, what's your maybe final advice for scientists that are not sure if they should make the step out of the lab and trying to commercialize their research? What would you advise to them?
Do you want to start? Or?
I can. Yeah, every university has a center like Guide, for example. So go there and talk to the people, let them do the networking, and they can set up you with other people that can help you sharp the problem that you're actually working on. So that would be an advice for me.
Yeah, my advice is very personal. It is do it, because it is an exciting journey you can make, and I think the risks are not so big in the beginning. If you are running your company for a few years, the risks are becoming bigger. Even personal for you, you have created something nice. Yeah, you have people you are responsible for. Then there are more risks for you, but just to start is not risky at all, I think. And again, you will make experiences you will not get anywhere else. And if it fails, you can still go to a big company and get a job there. So if there's a chance to start this journey, do it.
Very nice closing remarks.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed today's show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time. For everyone in the audience, if you're curious about SenseUp Biotechnology or ColFerroX, check them out online. Go at these nice people on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to know more about science-based entrepreneurship, make sure to join us on one of our next venture talks. And if you're from University of Duisburg-Essen, you have a startup idea, make sure to go to Guide, because they will be the people who will help you right here with your idea.
And now I think we invite Jenny on stage or in front of stage.
Join us.
Join us.
Yeah, but first of all, I would say we all give you a very warm applause.
Come on,
show
me.
Tonight. Thank you all for being here. And as already mentioned before, at the University of Duisburg-Essen, Guide, the Center for Startup and Innopreneurship, offers a lot of things to work with you on your idea, like our idea competition or the IPR management, the individual coaching, and so on. So later on, we will show you a short video of what we're actually doing. And if you're interested, just get in touch with us, learn more from us, and together we develop your idea. And now it's my turn to say thank you once again to be here today, to offer you all the insight and to share your experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation. Okay. Will you show the video right now?
Yes.
So, okay.
Should I move down a bit?
You can also come here.
Maybe it's easier.
Einmal noch umschalten und dann die Leertaste drücken.
There it is.
Die Forschung an sich hat an der Universität Duisburg-Essen, der UDE, naturgemäß einen sehr hohen Stellenwert. Mindestens genauso wichtig ist uns aber der Forschungstransfer, um Innovationen für die Gesellschaft nutzbar zu machen. Diesen Transfer unterstützt Guide, unser Zentrum für Gründungen und Innopreneurship an der UDE. Bei Ausgründungen ist es für die Forschenden und aber auch für die Studierenden äußerst hilfreich, einen Wegweiser, Lotsen, und das ist Guide für uns hier, an ihrer Seite zu haben, um aus ihren Forschungsergebnissen Geschäftsideen zu erzielen und diese letztendlich dann auch erfolgreich umzusetzen.
Als zentrale Anlaufstelle für alle Gründungsinteressierten unterstützen wir bei Guide an allen 3 Standorten in Duisburg, Essen und dem Universitätsklinikum mit unserem interdisziplinären Team GründerInnen aus allen Fachbereichen. Im regelmäßigen Dialog helfen wir dabei, Ideen zu schärfen und voranzutreiben. Dabei brennen wir für das Thema Gründen und wissen aus eigener Gründungserfahrung, wo es haken kann. Unsere Gründungscoaches stehen in allen Phasen der Gründung mit Rat und Tat zur Seite. Von der Erstberatung zur initialen Idee über die Weiterentwicklung des Geschäftsmodells bis hin zur Netzwerkarbeit, wo wir vor allem für den Markteintritt Türen öffnen können.
Die Idee für unseren Automaten ist bereits 6 Jahre alt. Aber jetzt erst stehen wir vor der Markteinführung. Bis dahin war es ein langer Weg mit vielen Herausforderungen. So mussten wir schauen, können wir das technologisch umsetzen, wie läuft das mit der Patentierung, kriegen wir Fördermittel für die Weiterentwicklung und natürlich gibt es überhaupt ein Marktpotenzial und wie groß ist das. Und das kann man alles gar nicht alleine schaffen. Glücklicherweise haben wir aber das Guide an unserer Seite. Das Guide organisiert beispielsweise Innovationswerkstätten zu grundsätzlichen Themen wie der Finanzplanung und der Geschäftsmodellentwicklung. Und unsere Coachin beim Guide, die Valeska, unterstützt uns tatkräftig beim Sparring zum Validieren unserer Ideen. Und aktuell hilft sie uns insbesondere dabei, unser internationales Netzwerk auszubauen.
Bei der Geschäftsmodellentwicklung hilft uns insbesondere das Businessmodell Canvas, was wir individuell auf unsere Gründer abgestimmt haben. Und so können wir alle Wegmarken auf dem Gründungsweg mit den GründerInnen beleuchten. Zur Stärkung der Gründungskultur hier an unserer Universität gehen wir dem Motto vor, geht nicht, gibt's nicht. Wir finden meistens einen Weg, unsere Gründerinnen zu unterstützen und mit besonderen Formaten dabei zu helfen. Startup-Sprints oder Matching von Teams und Ideen sind dabei sehr hilfreich. Die Ansprache von Mentorinnen stärkt das Netzwerk und die Klärung von Schutzrechten gibt Sicherheit bei der anschließenden Gründung.
Nanopartikel sind ein Schlüsselressource mit vielen Anwendungsmöglichkeiten. Ein aktuelles Beispiel für die Nutzung wäre der Covid-19-Schnelltest. Sie sind schwierig herzustellen und mit ihnen zu entwickeln. Bis jetzt. Unser Laborvollautomat produziert schnell, einfach und auf Knopfdruck Nanopartikel, welches ein wirklicher Boost für Forschung und Entwicklung ist.
Ihr habt eine spannende Idee, mit der ihr eine Gründung durchführen wollt oder Innovationen entwickeln wollt. Lasst es uns gemeinsam anpacken. Wir freuen uns auf euer Projekt, eure Gründung, eure Innovation.
Cool.
Very nice.
So, reach out to the team of Guide. If you are at Duisburg-Essen, reach out to Martin or myself if you are in chemistry, and reach out to Beate and Georg if you want to know more about their projects, and let's call it a day.
Yes,
I would
sir.
say. Okay, cool. Thank you.